some very special guests we have up here. And so I'm going to ask them a handful of questions for about 15 minutes, and then we'd love to take any questions from the audience. And so the topic really was centered around eMTB, and we're going to do some focus on racing here as well, because as an industry, this is still something we still are really trying to wrap our hands around about how this can evolve. So I'm going to kick it off talking to you, Troy. You've been one of the strongest voices in North America about growing eMTB. How did you get so interested in the first place?
I really crashed on my motorcycle and spent a month in the hospital and like 4 months in a wheelchair. It was Specialized gave me a commuter bike to get on. It was the first thing I got back on after I got hurt. I had a bunch of screws in my hip and wrist and everything else. And just when I got back on, I was like, wow, these things are amazing. And I just, ever since I've been believing them. I just, they're a great way for, I live in Laguna Beach, so it's a great way to travel in Laguna Beach, and with the injuries I've had, it's been amazing getting back on the bicycle trails. And I've just been pushing for Class 1 in all the parks everywhere and trying to get everybody to understand them. And I thought, instead of trying to go out and talk to a bunch of people, I thought I'd just said, I'm going to put some e-bike races on with some advice from Dave Cullinan and Stickman. They said, hey, don't take it too seriously. So they came up with the name Boogaloo, and been trying to do that. Just not keep it real, keep it kind of fun and light. I mean, it's mostly working with Jonathan at Bosch here, and Steven and Claudia. We kind of just said, let's go put one on at Mammoth. I know Bill Cockcroft up there, because I did the kamikaze with him for a lot of years. And he was the first person to kind of give me a chance to, I let him get on the bike and ride it and said, hey, this e-bike thing is a cool thing, especially at altitudes, man. And so he allowed me to put the first e-bike race on at the kamikaze, I think it was like 7 years ago. And kind of just been doing it every year, 2 or 3 events, 4 events. And just kind of trying to expose it to the ski lifts. And I thought if I can get, Mammoth to turn a corner, then I can work on Big Bear, I can work on Lake Tahoe, and we did one in Vail last year, and I think we turned a corner there. It's just getting people, get butts on seats and letting them ride it and experience it. And I think once they do it, it's turned the corner and it's opened up, a broader base of people out there riding on bikes.
So for yourself and then for the rest of the group too, why specifically do you think it's important for eMTB racing to flourish?
I hate saying this because I don't really think it, it wasn't so much about the racing, it was more about just getting my family all races, my 11-year-olds, my friends. It's just we go out and we have a good time, it's hard to pedal at 7,000 or 8,000 feet, do a cross country. And I know me and Leigh did that quite a bit for the last 20 years here, 30 years here, and it's just a fun experience, it's just a great time. And I know it's coming. I know that everybody's latching onto it from, the GPs in Europe are doing them now, the Works races and the GNCCs are doing them. So I think sometimes for me, I don't understand, all the reasons why we're doing this, but when I just get out there and do it, I start going, okay, this makes sense, and it's just a way for me to kind of figure out how to make a plan to move forward. And now I think there's quite a few different sanctioning bodies that are kind of investing in it, and hopefully we set a good path out there, and they can keep following it, and I just think it's the future.
Yeah.
Even Supercross called me and said they'd like to do it. The motocrosses are doing it, mountain biking's doing it. It's just it's fun.
Yeah. Claus, did you have something you wanted to jump in, or do you want me to ask?
I would say we experienced that like 5 years ago. We got asked during the Interbike on a panel discussion, why do we need e-mountain bike racing? And it was a panel discussion with Hans Ray and others from the industry and other races. And I thought about that going into the Interbike, why? And for me it was like, if people love what they do, they try to become better. They train, they exercise, and once they are better, they want to compete. Which means this is everywhere in any sports, in mountain biking, now it's also in e-mountain biking. And so with that, as people want to compete at one point in their life, we went back in Germany and we made experiments. Because we didn't know what would work, what would they like about it, and we started with cross country, then we started with marathon, then we started with enduro formats. we developed an eMTB challenge, which is kind of an enduro where you climb uphill and you're on tour with your friends all day, and then you have 3 uphill challenges and 3 downhill challenges like an enduro. And you can ride with your friends together, and I was able to ride with pro racers, or with former pro racers, in the whole day long, because then in enduro it was only this 1 minute or 2 minute section which was time. So we learned a lot about what kind of fun it is to bring people together and get swimming on seats. And well, then something happened in Europe, which was very critical 2 years ago. And you talked about the sanctioning bodies. The former UCI president in 2017, he said that e-bikes and e-mountain bikes do not belong to cycling, and that if anyone wants to do e-mountain bike racing, this should belong to the motorbike guys, to the FIM. And this was very critical back then, because all over Europe, in Germany, in Italy, and in France especially, there were many e-mountain bike races going on, and now FIM stepped in and said, we want to own it. And then there was a huge debate in Europe that was really mission critical. And then in the end of 2017, there was a change in the UCI, and the new president, David Lapierre, he took over. And one of his first action was to send out a letter that e-bikes, e-mountain bikes belong to cycling, and they belong to the UCI, and UCI will sanction e-mountain bike racing. Period. But they didn't know how. So then they invited the industry. We got involved also through the WFSGI, the World Federation of the Sporting Goods Industry. And they got involved. We got invited to Egel in Switzerland. We discussed with the UCI. We helped them to understand what's the product, what's the technology, what are the regulations, what about cutoff speed, power limits, wattage capacity of the battery. And then for half a year, nothing happened. It was all quiet. There were no meeting minutes published, and we were like, okay, what's going on? We asked, no progress. Then we got invited again for different calls, and we supported them, and then all of a sudden, they published that this year, the first World Championship in Canada would happen. And what they did is they asked the industry, if teams with your system want to participate, then we put you on a whitelist of systems which are approved, but you have to send technicians to ensure from the first race on that it's a proper and clean race. So we talked about earlier about anti-tuning, anti-tempering, so no manipulation of the cutoff speed and so on. So that was very important. So we are still involved with the UCI. Claudia met David in Canada. I will meet him in January again. And it was so super important that UCI now takes ownership about that category, and that we are not mistaken as being dirt bikes, motorbike, combustion engine, whatever. We are cyclists.
Definitely. Did you have anything to add at this point, or do you want me to hold off for a specific question for you?
Yeah.
All right. So building on that, we know USA Cycling has been showing interest. It's going to continue to grow, and there's going to continue to be interest. So really, to all of you, what do you feel are the key ingredients to ensure that eMTB racing continues to grow in a successful manner, as opposed to, going and splitting into, deviating in different directions? Or, so you said, so it remains fun as well.
First of all, we started with just having fun. And having fun in a recreational race, and not too super serious. But now that we got pro riders, we got UCI, we got a World Championship, now we have to take it serious and look also on the rules, regulations, boundary conditions, and how can you control that. It shouldn't be too super complicated, but at least you have to have some rules. And when you ask me what are the key ingredients, first of all, everyone who wants to host a race has to think about what kind of race should it be. Should it be a cross-country, a round course, then, or you want to have an enduro type of race or an adventure type of race, whatever. You have to think about that you make when it comes to track and race course design. You have to think about making best use of the motor and of the battery. It just doesn't make sense to have a flat cross-country course and have someone with a heavy bike pedal above cutoff speed. That just doesn't make sense. It's still a heavy bike. And so then, therefore, you have to make use of the motor like they did in Canada. And what I heard, and we talked about that last night, and I talked to Natalie Schneider from Switzerland, who won the gold medal. And and it was super steep, super technical. It was challenging to climb uphill. It was challenging going downhill, and almost no flat sections. But this is how you make best use of an e-mountain bike, to really have this challenge, especially the uphill challenge. Then one discussion that we always talk about, but this is depending on the type of race you want to have: battery capacity, battery range. Do you want to have a short distance, like 1 hour, or you want to have an enduro for the whole day? Do you allow one battery or multiple battery? Do you allow them to carry it on the back or not? This is very specific, and there is no opinion out there right now which is true or wrong. I think they're always still in experimental stage, and everything is possible. I think the biggest issue that we have to take care of is tempering or tuning, manipulation of the cutoff speed. This is really an issue. This can become an issue, because if we don't have this under control, then maybe the sport comes into to a wrong perspective. It becomes will have a wrong image. So therefore, we said this in the morning: Class 1, pedal control, no throttle, low power. In Germany or in Europe, 25 kilometers per hour, in the US 20 miles per hour cutoff speed, period. This is very important. And now this is the tricky part, how we can control that. And this is why we are, as an industry, in close contact with the UCI, because the effort that we had to take, send 2 technicians to Canada to help to set up the bikes, and then they locked in the Parc Fermé. You cannot do this in every race all over the world, all over the country. So cutoff speed control, this is the difficult thing, and this is where we have to work as an industry.
Yeah, definitely. And Troy, I know something that you think is really important to the success of the racing, and I think most people will agree, is the quality of the design of the course. Can you tell us more about what you think really goes into some of the more successful, even the Boogaloo courses that...
Yeah, I've always made them kind of, I want all the fans to see everybody, the whole action, and not lose everybody. I think in cross country you lose people and it gets boring, so ours are, I mean, the way we set it up was more of, you know, it was kind of a 2-day event. We went out there virtually and shoveled the track and built the jumps and built some wood jumps, and we had some places where you rode through the snow. And I really was just trying to get butts on seats and just get as many people to get out on the track and participate. I mean, practice was the coolest, because it was, you'd go, wow, there's 80 people on the course pedaling together, and it was really fun to see everybody experience it, and that was the main thing, because I want the ski lifts to turn around and go, hey, Class 1 should be allowed. Look at all these people, man, they're having a good time. And then as we, you know, the first courses we did really small, and then we got a little bit bigger, and then we put some more obstacles in it, and we almost used all 3 of the elements that you're talking about. A little bit of adventure, a little bit of jumps, so everybody could have fun out there, you know. I mean, the cool part is I could go out and race with my 11-year-old kid, my 19-year-old son, and myself, and we all could kind of battle, you know, and that's what made the, you know, the Class 1 e-bikes made us all pretty level. You know, my wife got out there and raced. It was just I wanted to make sure we all had fun. There were smiles on everybody's faces, and I just think the world of e-bikes, man. I think it's the future, and I just want to wrap my arms around it. And the best way for me to wrap my arms around something is just saying, we're putting a race on, we're going to go do this.
And uphill is obviously a huge element.
Yeah, we made some always definitely hard uphills, you know. I mean, that was made it really fun, you know, and made it technical too.
Yeah. Now, Leigh, I invited Leigh here because, fun fact, she doesn't even know, well, she knows now, but she indirectly taught me how to mountain bike 10 years ago. So there was like an email going back and forth. I was like, you might not know. And I'm like, I know who Leigh Donovan is. She taught me how to mountain bike. So anyway, it's very cool for me having her here. But I'm just really curious to hear from your perspective as a former professional mountain bike racer. What do you think about what's going on around eMTB and how it's becoming sanctioned racing?
Well, I don't know enough about racing sanctions. I think that on the racing side, it seems like it happened very quickly. So it was like, you know, as a former world champion, I was almost a little bit like taken back that they're giving a jersey to somebody with an eMTB, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was ridiculous because you put so much in your category and you work so hard to have that rainbow jersey, and it seems like, oh, it just popped up, boom, oh, eMTB. It's like, where did that even come from? Like, very few people that ride mountain bikes own an eMTB. So I'm absolutely 100% for eMTB. I think they're amazing, and they've changed my husband's life completely, who didn't ride a bike for many years, and they got my husband back on a bike. So I think that there's definitely a place for it. As far as the racing goes, me personally, I feel like it's kind of happened so quickly that it's hard to really form an opinion, because I haven't been involved enough at like this level. I haven't been involved at that level. It just seems like, wow, okay, now there's people racing eMTB and now it's a profession. Wow, that's so crazy to me. Yeah, for me, I focus on education, and I feel like this past year in 2019, I'm an acoustic mountain bike instructor, and so I put on lots of events around the country. I do a lot of private instruction, and this year I've had an increase in private instruction with e-bikes specifically, and all women. I've had all women reach out to me for eMTB instruction. And the one thing I've learned is that there is an area where it's super important to educate these riders. This industry doesn't really have a great YouTube presence on proper education. These bikes are more technical than even an acoustic mountain bike, eMTB. And I think it's super important that we throw energy towards education, and maybe racing makes more sense. You know, I think racing brings on, like, and I've spoken with quite a few people here, what racing does is it helps make better product. We know that racers will help develop the best products in the world. So I'm 100% for racing at any level. I was taken back.
It was fast.
Yes, I was taken back that it was a UCI recognized World Championship event, yes.
Yeah, and you know, this is, I think, a great spot to start taking questions. Like, we know this is a hot topic, so I wanted this diversity of thoughts and opinions around it. So let's open it up if there's any questions for the panel here.
I don't think it's a question, but I want to kind of reiterate what Leigh said, and I want to say that. But I think racing promotes innovation, and I've been around the sport long enough and had enough too little experience in my life to watch innovation and products change because of racers, like Leigh said. So I just want to make sure that we heard Leigh, because I think that's what racing bring to e-bikes and bring to the innovation.
And it's definitely an important category to, you know, recognize. Like, racing all over. We wouldn't have full suspension. We wouldn't have awesome tires or disc brakes, or, I mean, none of that would happen without people racing out there and pushing the limits, and, you know, higher quality frames. And racing does make a big difference.
Yes.
I have a question for Claus. We've seen so much racing and racing drive innovation across tons of other categories of bikes, but there's never been a category that's been quite so limited and regulated before. So where do you see racing potentially driving future innovation at Bosch when, like, speed is limited, the wattage is limited, and all this stuff? Like, where can racing push that?
Very much the innovation will go into weight reduction and have less weight for the same performance, and reduce center of gravity, better integration, so that you have all the high-end component that you have today in suspension and brakes and gears, and also for an e-mountain bike. And it's a good thing, and we are discussing this a lot. Shall there be a power limit like we have today, or shall there be an open class, so no power limit? And then we say, without power limit, this is motocross, this is dirt bike, go to the FIM. But if we want to be a cyclist and being seen as cyclist, then we should be happy that worldwide it's defined as a class 1 in the US, it has all the rights and duties of a bicycle, and this is the only thing we should promote. Because our customers should go to a bike shop on a Friday and should race on a Saturday without having to do anything with that bike. And this is the intent.
So you think there's still lots of room for innovation?
Absolutely.
Even with the limits in place? Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely.
Was there one more? Yeah, I thought there was one more.
Yeah, I have a question for Leigh. You mentioned everyone you've been teaching has been female eMTB riders, and that's a part of the market that I don't think has grown at all. What do you find those riders are looking for, and how do you feel like we can help?
The riders that have come to me are their husbands bought them a bike, and they've ridden them, but they're just not confident in what they're actually doing on the bike. And so, you know, basic things like how do you stand with level pedals? You have to understand that people they might get an eMTB that maybe ride road bikes, but they don't ride off-road eMTB bikes. And how do you shift gears? Like the last lady I worked with last week, she wasn't using her front brake at all on a downhill, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're on this heavy bike, you have to use your front brake, you know. And but it's a lot of people that the husbands want their wives or girlfriends or whatever to ride with them. And I will say that I still, about 70% of my business is female driven, so it's not surprising to me that it's women that have reached out to me. But it's that we're giving a bike to someone, an eMTB, without them really understanding what it is, even how to set up their own touch points, and you know, the brake levers adjust, and you know, there's so much to setting someone up on an eMTB or even a regular mountain bike for that matter, that still we're still learning that education really matters from the second that rider receives the bike. And you know, back to automotive, you know, it's funny, whenever I buy a car, you know, they're like, okay, they're gonna walk me, as soon as I buy it, they walk me out to the car and they walk me through every part of the car, right? They're like, here's this and here's that, and you set up your Bluetooth and you do all that. We really, in the bike industry, we still lack in that area. They buy the bike and they're like, hey, we'll go through it. Oh, I got it. The customer's like, I got it. We should make it mandatory that they spend 30 minutes, an hour. We work with that rider, getting them set up before they even walk out the door, so they know what their seat height should be, and you know, they understand that those brake levers, they shouldn't be way out here. If I got a small hand like I do, the brake lever should be able to come in further. So brake levers are adjustable. Let's show our customer that they're adjustable. And the fact that we get riders, women that come and they've got seats like this that are coming, I'm like, what? Let's lower your seat. Oh, you can do that? Yeah, you can do that. So education still is something we really suck at in this industry, both acoustically and on the e-side as well.
Yes.
So Troy, I love the Boogaloo series because us old guys that used to race and love to race still have the itch. And when we can get on an e-bike and those days of yore start to go through our eyes and we're running on the course, what are we doing now to promote? What do you do to promote Boogaloo and to get guys like me out there?
I'm trying to think of what I do. I just,
He says, Tim, we're putting on this event on this day. You make it happen. They're doing they do Instagram ads.
But I mean,
Yeah.
guys like me that follow it, but I've got buddies that are like, dude, I would buy an e-bike if I could go racing.
Yeah.
well, that's why we try to make it, really, it was great, having Specialized and Trek and Giant, when I can get all those brands to show up with 12 bikes each and get people on the track. Because there's at the Boogaloo events is half the time people will show up there and they weren't even going to race, and then they get on the bike and they go around the track and we watch them and we shovel it and sweep it and get it all dialed in, and the track kind of grows and the riders kind of grow, and the next thing you know, I think the last event you were at, we had everybody lined up, in rows of 8, and I went, wow, and that's why it keeps evolving. I'm like, let's just do a mass start here. This is crazy. We have, and they outsold the thing too. So we had 40 people on the starting line, and it was pretty fun. So just getting out there and touching it, it's like I didn't have all the answers. I'm like, you know what? I just feel there's a movement here, and I think I'd love to help steer it a little bit. And I think it's, it's really good for our brand. I know we do get some hate mail, but. I fully believe in it, and I'm having a great time with my family and kids, and I have 5 or 6 e-bikes in my garage at all times, and I feel like, I ride almost every morning here, and it's one of my buddies showing up, what pedals do you need, what seat, and I get them out and we go ride, and it's the future, I'm working with the city of Laguna Beach right now to try to put some green stripes down the street on the bicycle paths, and I just think it's, we can get, I'm telling the city, I go, we need more bicycle racks in town, we need 1,000 less cars, 1,000 more bicycles. So I'm kind of working in lots of different areas, and I wouldn't be in business today here if I wasn't working with the racers, because we build pads and helmets and gloves, and I'm just trying to keep up with the technology these days. I mean, everything from Indy cars and motorcycles and mountain bikes and e-bikes, I mean, everything's getting a couple miles an hour faster. Even though they're putting restrictions on, people figure out how to get around it. And so I'm just trying to keep, you know, I have a lot of friends like me and Leigh go way back. And, you know, most of my, you know, a lot of the athletes that helped me over the last 38, 39 years are still out there riding bicycles, and I'm still trying to protect them and their kids. So it's kind of my job, I feel like, you know, and I love doing it. And if I can make something look a little cooler and a little faster, I think they'll wear it a little bit more.
But you were asking about participation, and I may share a little bit the experience we made in Europe. So 5 years ago in Riva del Garda for the bike festival, we did for the first time the e-mountain bike challenge, which is this enduro format. It was, for the first year, was maybe 50 or 60 riders. It was mainly older guys like us who raced recreational or in the former times. And then over time, we got sold out very fast, and we limited to 150 per race, and it's like 5 or 6 per year in Europe, and the first is always a lever. The second group of participants were then the very young, the teenagers and the younger kids, because they don't have an issue with knee mountain bike, because for them it's innovation, it's cool, it's a fun product. The difficult segment was 30 to 45. Because these guys say, oh, we're still super fit and I don't need that, and this is cheating, this is wrong. But this has changed as well. So we have, all of them are riding now e-mountain bike racing, and they love it. And so participation is now from old to young, from pro to amateur, everyone. Good thing.